Hello folks, welcome to a video about my footsteps in childhood. Cley Next The Sea, Norfolk. This is where I spent many a time, all my school holidays, either here, Blakeney, Brancaster. School holidays, weekends, this is where we were. Family home was here. Let me just climb up the bank here and we'll do a little panorama across the marshes and Cley Next The Sea. So that's it in its distance. Now let's zoom. The building straight ahead, George Hotel. And then when we get to the end, we have Cley Mill. Hold it steady, hold it steady. So we'll have a walk around. In fact, I'll leave the car here. I think no, we're going to park further. Dog walkers want to park here. It's not fair to take spaces. There's not many spaces here. Right, I'll bring you back from in the village, but we'll start the walk here. There's a free car park at Cley Village Hall. There's a Cley Community Cafe, open 10 till 4. So let's start here. I remember Village Hall being built late 70s, I guess. A little bit of a sign here and some information. Welcome to Cley, historic coastal village. There's a Cley Heritage Walk leaflet. I'll try to photograph that and put some in at the end. And let's see what we can see. So we used to come here. I can always remember coming here. I must have come here in nappies, I suppose. Certainly changed. So we'll have a walk around the village. It's like 1978 Village Hall was built. Great stuff. Bring it back. Right, so we're starting at the end of High Street. And I think that's probably Main Street. But what we'll do is we'll start here at the picnic fair. I knew that as Cley Forge, an art gallery run by Mr. and Mrs. Lee. The forge was working. There was a blacksmith who used to work at the weekends and bank holidays, and you could buy various trinkets made of horseshoes and artwork. Look across, we've got Cley Smokehouse and a shop here, and we're back over the road. This was, bear with me, this was Mr. Hopkins or Hopkinson, the butchers. This was family home. In our day it was called Berrington House. The shop in yellow here, I seem to remember, was Starling's general store and groceries. This was my grandmother's shop, studio Antico. Through the archway was a builder's yard. So we'll walk down the street a bit here. It's ever so busy, as you'd expect, I guess. If you walk down here, this house on the right was a newsagent, tobacconist type shop. Little footpath there going up through the village. Walking. Quite a few businesses actually along the high street in the day. The next building we come to, just past the phone box, was Mrs. Taylor's Antiques. It's a rather impressive building. It's got to have been the chapel, I would think, or Methodist church. So this building on the right was Mrs. Taylor's Antiques. So I guess they were in competition with my grandmother at the time. Cool old door. I'm going to go to the George, so I'll stop recording now and do some more in a bit. So heading now towards the George. We'll let all the cars go. There's another business here on the left, the local fish and chip shop, which was here, now called Flanders. That was a local fish and chip shop, and I used to hate it when they sold fried new potatoes. Now at the George. Let's go big. Now George and Dragon. I don't think it was George and Dragon before. I don't know. We'll just have a pan to the chip shop. That was fish and chips. Let's get around the corner. We'll get over the road, I think. Cool Airstream caravan stroke. I don't know what it serves. Will serve some sort of refreshments. So there's the George. Further along the road here was the Mrs. Bishop's general store, but I think first we'll pop into Cley Mill. The archway coming into view there. In fact, we need to pop across there, because if I remember rightly, it'll show you some flood lines from when there's been floods. Here we go. No. Well, that's a shame. There used to be a plaque on there that used to show the flood lines, where the floods happened. Let's go and look at the mill. So here we are at Cley Mill, and what I believe was reputed to be the harbour, very much silted up now, but yes, big boats used to come in here many years ago. In fact, it says Cley Harbour on the board. We used to have a dinghy with an outboard motor. We used to go from here. We used to follow the creek out to sea, around the headland, and into Blakeney and back. Myself and my brother, he's 2 years older than me. I think I'd have been 7 years old, it'd have been 9. That's about right. Send your kids out in a motorboat on their own. there was an old, what do they call them? Like, not a landing craft, a pontoon type military bridge pontoon thing, which they used to use once a year for the village duck shoot. And it was here for years. Then the guys in the village would go out duck shooting on the marshes. Hi there. Here's the creek the other way. I've got a tale about a sea wall. I used to walk the sea wall from here, well, just around the corner from here. There's a footpath to my grandfather's house, the family home, and we used to go down there, and I used to walk on the sea wall. I don't know if you still can or not. When about 5, 6, 7 years old. Anyway, keep on the move. I think what I remember, this was pretty run down, mill was, and this was a joiner's workshop, and joiner's workshop, and I think the workshop also went here, from what I remember. Anyway, all holiday accommodation now. Let's go down this little pathway. It's a shame the placards gone, which showed the tide levels. There was one particularly devastating tide and storm here. Salt House was destroyed. Salt House, or salt houses, next village along, was virtually destroyed. 1940s, I believe. Let's see, just looking at the plaque, I don't remember that. It's like somebody's moving out or in. That's obviously George and the Dragon. Now, was it George called George and the Dragon when I was a kid? There's the thing. Anybody help on that? George and the Dragon. So that was Mrs. Bishop's store. Bishop family, famous for crabs. And I think the fish shop was that way. I'm sure it was. Yes, by the fish and the crabs from there. So, footsteps of my childhood, spent running around this village, riding bicycles. I don't think I particularly caused mischief. Probably did. But what an amazing place it was to spend time as a child. Right, I carry on walking on my own. So I've just got to the end of that little pathway. School down there. Saw his hat. So I'll try and do the work for you. Have a Google at Cley Next The Sea, North Norfolk. Also, the village further up the coast, Salt House or Salt Houses. Look at the history and the floods. It's certainly very, very much different since I was here as a child, but then everywhere is. Some bits and bobs here for sale actually. Either for sale or help yourself. All I can say is thank you for watching. There's another little alleyway. In fact, let's carry on. Let's carry on down. Let's go down here again then. This is another little alleyway. There's these crisscross the village. Probably one of the modern attractions. And say something at the end of interest. Quite slippery. Even though in the 1960s, from what I remember, there were very, very few cars. And we were always told to watch that road. Keep away from that corner. You know, as if you listened. But if you drove through the village, I remember driving through with my dad. If you met another car coming the other way, it was very rare. I just remember it as being an idyllic place to spend my childhood. A great place for adventure and countryside and boats and fishing and crabbing, and maybe that's what we did instead of getting into mischief. Maybe that was mischief, I don't know. So back down on the I've just come down. So back down on Main Street now. I think it's called Main Street. I can't remember. George there, George and Dragon. It is George and Dragon. Fancy that. What an idiot. This is a Sanders Chroma bus. Takes about 2 hours to get from Fakenham to here, I seem to remember. Right, well, I'm going to pop into the forge and see if it's still there, and I might buy a bit of pork pie for my lunch, assuming they sell pork pie. But we use Barrington House as my drop back. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming along on my little journey of childhood nostalgia. Thank you for taking a look at Cley Next The Sea with me. A beautiful Norfolk village. I feel very privileged to have spent so much time here as a child, and privileged to be able to come back and see it relatively unchanged, albeit very different in many respects. Thank you for watching. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Right, after walking into somebody, as usual with my videos, there's always a bit more. I've been in the forge, picnic fair, talked about the cannons outside, because they'll be Russian cannons. We use Russian cannons in this country. Captured Russian ships, because the cannons were no use to us, they're a different bore. The forge is still there. He believed the forge hadn't been used since the early 1950s, and I said, well, I used to be allowed to use it in the late 1970s when Mr. and Mrs. Lee had the gallery and they had the blacksmith there, and I used to go across and pump the bellows and have a go at bending bits of metal, molten metal, and get told I got it too hot or not hot enough. Back to the sea wall. I used to walk along this sea wall. Mum and Dad used to play hell with me because that is the end of what we know as Barrington House. This was Mr. and Mrs. Lee's, and you can still see the fact it was a gallery. You can see this in the studio, you can see the big windows. That's because it was an art studio. But they put this boardwalk in. And I'll show you why Mum and Dad used to go crazy. Because I used to climb onto the sea wall here and then walk along the sea wall to the mill. This is actually sorted up quite a bit because here was a long drop, and it was a long drop. So to climb on here and walk along the sea wall, and now they've put a boardwalk in. This is really cool, absolutely brilliant. There's a creek here. This is a creek that you saw at the mill, or part of it. Very silted up now. I remember my grandfather, he broke his leg on the marshes here. So I used to walk the sea wall. This boardwalk is a lot easier. And the only problem was, walking the sea wall, there was a bush that you had to squeeze by, or a tree, and I wonder if that is it. You don't get by it now. But if it is that bush, I used to have to hang on to it and squeeze by. How cool is this? So this just the other side of the reeds here, or where the reeds are. They used to cut the reeds as well. Used to be a guy used to come along and I'd call it a punt, like the pontoon they had at the mill, but a bit smaller. And he used to cut the reeds, and then when he took them away, he'd load them up onto this, what we call a punt, and take them away. How it didn't topple over, I don't know. But I really like this boardwalk. This is really cool. I mean, I've been here in my life since I was a kid. I can't say I've passed through. You know, when you've lived somewhere, it's in your past, it's history, and that's been and gone sort of thing. But I think age, and essentially this is why I started the channel, was to try to record snippets of life. Got some canoes here. I think we used to have a dinghy, and I think it had a little, it wasn't a Johnson motor, it might have been Evinrude motor on the back. So there's a pile of canoes. The various descriptions. We're back at the creek, so I guess around the corner here we've got the mill. We will have. And this is where I used to come around this corner. So this is where I used to get down on these steps, I guess. Right, well that'll be the way I'm walking back. Oh yeah, we're back at the mill. I did pick up the, as you saw, I did pick up the leaflet at the village centre. If you won't look at that, I'll probably just take some stills and put it on the end of the video with some other stills I've taken. So as you pass through Cley Next The Sea, stop and have a look, because there's more to see than just a little twisty tight road through a village. Because you can wander down these little paths, you can wander out towards the other road we came on from the junction towards, it goes out towards Holt, I think, seem to remember, and Cley Heath, I think, is up there. Anyway, there's the George and the Dragon. Something of interest. I think that's a cycle touring club badge. Right, I'm going to stop videoing because I want to take a photo of that. Photograph taken of the cycle touring club badge. I never walked along this path as a kid. I don't think. Why would I? I got the wall to walk along, and the wall was more interesting. Let's give you a look over the top towards the marshes. I've got to say, it was an amazing place to be as a child. I don't think I'd want to live here now, because I don't really do tourism as such. I've spent my life being a tourist, but not a tourist in touristy places as such. I like to go to places and feel the real experience of where you are, sort of thing. We'll go to the end. Oh dear. I did used to come down that pathway. I remember coming between these houses. Town Hall Mews. Right, well that's it. I'm going to go. I'm going to have one last look to see if I can find the tide line for the flood and take a picture of that to put on the end. And once again, see you next time from somewhere else in the world. Thank you for watching.